A shock new report out today has revealed Australians are paying some of the highest childcare fees in the world.
Look, I don't need to tell you at home, but if you're paying for childcare at the moment, it can climb in the capital cities up to more than $200 a day. Plenty of people spending over $100. But say, for example, in Germany, the capital there, Berlin, because of the government subsidies, parents pay a maximum of $7.85 for 5 days of care. OK, so let's put this to our Sunday jury. Journalist, good mate of our program, John Mangos, another good mate of our program, Shell Shock Media's Shelly as well. Welcome to both of you.
Happy to be here.
John, can I start with you? Because this is a real pressure for families.
Yeah, it sure is. And, you know, you talk about the shock. I've already had the shock because I've put my two boys through daycare when my wife and I were both working full-time. We've paid the $100 a day for each of them, which roughly worked out for those couple of years, $50,000 each year. And I remember at one stage naively saying to my wife, you know, if we can afford it down the track, how are we going to put our kids through private school? Where are we going to find the money? She said, we're already finding it for the daycare.
Yeah, that's right.
It's as expensive as private school. We were paying roughly 50 grand a year. Yep, there was a bit of a subsidy. I think kicks in at about $7.5 grand mark. It's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like federal governments of both persuasions have talked about this for years.
Yeah.
It's not like childcare workers are getting paid millions of dollars. They are not very well paid.
No.
The government has subsidies in place, but it just doesn't seem to be enough.
Look, it's not enough. And the thing is, it's a huge deterrent for women to going back into the workforce. And the thing is, like Ross and I talk about all the time, we need women to go back into the workforce. It's fantastic for our economy. It's fantastic for women's self-esteem. So we actually need to get the government to actually make a difference and say, we're going to put a chunk into childcare and do a subsidy that makes it completely reasonable. Because I've got friends who say, I would love to go back to work, but it is exactly the same cost as childcare. So I'm only going back for my self-esteem, not for a financial advantage. Therefore, it's not worth it.
Yeah, and that's the economic decision, or, you know, sort of that every family has to make. It is whether it's worthwhile.
Yep.
You know, say, in particular, many women going back into the workforce. Just change of pace now, John, I've got to tell you. Men and their sensitive side. There's a Sydney school that's teaching teenage boys maybe how to tap in and be more sensitive, that maybe it's OK for those young teenage boys to cry, which for many of them, it's the ultimate sort of indignity as compared with their peers.
Yeah, well, see, I disagree that it's an indignity. I think it's a show of a young man's strength if he can cry and show that he has raw emotion about something. I think two things that Australian blokes don't do very well is cry in public and kiss in public, kiss their fathers in public. You know, it's just not very masculine. I come from a European culture where we kiss each other all the time. And I think it's lovely to show that. You'd know too from European background. And the crying thing is an extension of that, I believe. If something's upset you, have a cry so everyone knows you're upset. That's showing your manliness rather than concealing it and suppressing it, in my opinion.
Is this up to schools, Shelley, or is this something that we should be looking at as a wider society? Parents, families, uncles, television programs telling boys it's OK to cry?
I absolutely think it's vital to let our boys know that it's OK to cry, because the alternative is they commit suicide. You know, like if it's... I've had so many people going, oh, you're so PC when it comes to, you know, telling boys to man up is negative. And I'm like, no, those words are really powerful. And if you're saying to a boy, you can't cry because only girls cry, you're letting them know that they have to suppress their emotions. And the result is this huge suicide rate that we have in Australia for men. So those boys grow up and they still don't know how to deal with their emotions. So I think, yes, it's important in schools. Yes, it's important in society. And if you have a choice of being PC or having the suicide rate come down, I think I choose PC.
It's a tough one, because it's got to be a broad thing, because, of course, if a boy does cry, a teenage boy, often they can be bullied by others who say, mate, you know,
but
that's the
problem.
That's the problem. That's
the other boys have got to understand that it's OK.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Geez, it's tough for boys.
It's hard, and I think
girls.
it's an important one as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed. All right, thank you so much. Well, coming up, fake blood, cobwebs and pumpkins are covering this nation as the spookiest day of the year approaches. So, are you celebrating Halloween this year? We're going to put it to our jury. That's up after this break.
Welcome back. Well, if you don't like seeing buskers on the streets, how about seeing them in the skies?
Really?
Yep. Southwest Airlines has announced it is bringing live music performances to between 15 and 20 flights a year.
Buskers? In the air?
Yeah.
Well, we're back on Sunday Jury with Shell Shock Media's Shelly Horton and journalist John Mangos. I don't like this.
Oh,
Shelley?
I hate this. The thing is, I like to get on a plane, have something to eat, watch a movie, take a pill, go to sleep. That's the way it works. I don't want people playing music and distracting me. And I was just on a plane recently that had Wi-Fi, and someone beside me was FaceTiming home and talking loudly because he had headphones on. I think planes should be a quiet place.
I agree.
I couldn't agree more. Could you think of anything worse? Some second-rate artist on an aeroplane and talk about the expression captive audience. There's no escape. Like, at least at a theatre, you can go, this show's terrible, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
You can't do that on a plane.
Unless they give you a parachute.
And what if you plan to use some of that time to read a book, do some emails, have some quiet time?
No, don't do this. This is a terrible idea.
Go on.
That's right.
Forget it.
I don't even
right,
like
we
to
vote
talk to the
no.
person next to me on the plane.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah.
Let's move on now, because Halloween is on Tuesday, and that means that this weekend is your last chance to get kitted out with a spooky costume. Already, John, the celebrities are getting into it. Are you into it?
My kids are into it.
Look at them.
Yeah, they're here, in fact.
Right over there.
Scary
there they
Monsters.
are.
There's my two boys. That's from last year's Halloween. Look, I used to think it was an American affectation that we copied.
Yeah.
But when I see how much joy it brings the kids, I've switched right around. It's just a really fun day. And in our neighbourhood, they've got a really clever idea where one street hosts Halloween. So you haven't got kids randomly all around the suburb. So all the parents can keep an eye on the kids, just go up and down the same
Amazing.
street. It's
I can
wonderful.
see the family resemblance there, John.
Can you? Yes. Well, so of course, I don't need a mask.
Grey wolf of...
Which one do I look?
Look at them there.
Which one do I look like?
It's a bit of a...
I love it.
Shelley, you scream Halloween
I
to me.
know. I look
You are the
like I
right
would
colour,
dress up
you're everything.
constantly.
Look at you.
I haven't been to a Halloween party.
No.
But my husband and I got married in Mexico, and we went to Day of the Dead. So Day of the Dead is a bit different because it's celebrating those who've passed versus Halloween, which is celebrating horror. I think, though, if I had to celebrate horror, I'd just wear the wedding dress from my first marriage because that was a nightmare.
Quality. That's
the quote of the day.
Have you still got the scars to prove it?
Seriously.
Oh, Lordy, I'll tell you what. That is spectacular. How was our jury this morning, eh?
Done.
That one there. Spectacular. Very good.
Thanks, guys. John and Shelley, always good to chat to
See you
you.
soon.
We'll be back with more in a moment.